we are in the middle of our week. Hopefully, I hope you're having fun with your reading. Just wanted to go over the scope of several different things in this week, which basically from creation to when Isaac gets married. So it's a lot of information and a lot of time. A couple of things just to bring out as you're reading. Often in Genesis, in the very beginning, what you're going to see is you're going to see the phrase, this is the genealogy of, or this is the family of, or this is the story of. And that's marking different stories for you so you know where you're going with it. And that's just a marker in the text. Highlights of the middle of the week are with Abraham, you have his 7 beginning promises, the 4 shaping promises that tell him what the promise of God is going to be like and that give him visual aids to go with the promises. The covenant that God makes with him of 400 years in oppression, but that also God is going to pay for his sins with his own sacrifice. And then you see Abraham's roller coaster of faith, because you often see that when Abraham's trying to follow God, his faith goes up and down and up and down and a lot like us. And that God never destroys him with a lightning bolt, any of that. So those are some highlights from the week. Some tough questions from the beginning of the Bible that I wanted to give you. And I just want to explain a little bit about how I'm going to address this. I may not answer all of the questions. I may give you questions to ask the people who are asking you. Often, as we know from Jesus, the best way to answer a question is with another question. So a couple of the frequently asked questions are the tough questions. Who did Cain marry? That's a great question. The Bible very tactfully, I think, doesn't tell us that it was probably his sister. But I think that one of the things that happens in this is you have a lot of people who want to argue and say, you know, did God create several different groups of people? And so did Cain go outside of his family to get married? Or did Cain marry his sister? In which case, isn't incest gross? Yes. So those are some things that you need to be able to consider when you're talking about Cain and who did he marry. But I would give you a couple of questions to ask. So, if God created multiple groups of people at creation, why are all of the people on earth held accountable for Adam and Eve's sin? How is Adam the federal head of a group of people who already existed? So if they want to ask that particular question, you can invite them to head into something much scarier and deeper, and they probably won't do it. The other one is Cain's possibly marrying his sister. Well, those laws against incest and all of that stuff came up in the Old Testament, and really who else was there? They really had to have new people. It's possible that the genetic information was much more complex, and that it wouldn't be likely for them to have 6 fingers and 3 eyes or things like that. Second question, giants on the earth. I get this question all the time. I do Bible studies and people come up to me and they're like, hey, I got a question for you. I'm like, is it about the giants in Genesis 6? And they're like, how did you know? Everybody asks that question, just so you know. So it's not a scary question to answer. And when people come up and they want to ask you that question, you can do it. A couple of different options with this are that the angels combined with the people to create very large people. That's one option. There are people who tie that together with part of Jude, part of, I think, 1st or 2nd Peter. And it talks about how these angels have been kept in chains since the time of Noah. And then people extrapolate from that the angels were trying to mate with humans, and that's why they were chained up. Well, the New Testament never says that explicitly, and so we can't say that either. That would be a big mistake. You don't want to go beyond the Bible in trying to explain the Bible. The other thing is that when God created the world, when he created all of the animals, he told them to reproduce after their kind. And so you're not going to see God breaking that. In fact, every time in nature when you see something reproducing outside of its own kind, the offspring is sterile. And so you're not going to see a race of large giant people. So what I would say to you for this, the word that's there is the word Nephilim. It comes from Hebrew, which is nifal, or nafal. It's to fall. So people who fall on other people. And what we see in Genesis 6 is that it's a time when there's so much violence in the earth that the whole world is completely full of it. And every intent of man's heart is only ever evil all the time. The sons of God have mixed with the daughters of man, which means people who follow God have mixed with people who don't. And they've created something worse than either. And everyone is falling on everyone else, and it's a system of tyranny. And actually, when God destroys all the people on the earth at that time, it's a mercy to save us from all those tyrants, the people who fall on other people. The third one is, can God be sorry? In Genesis 6:6, it says that God was sorry that he had made man. And people have asked this question a lot. If God doesn't make mistakes, can he repent? Can he be sorry? Well, the Bible really clearly says that God was sorry. I think that we take an attitude toward God like he can't have real, genuine emotions because we've created this God that's more like Greek philosophy where emotions are bad and wrong and not real. And so we take God and we put him into this kind of a Greek mold and say that he has to be totally unmoved. He has no real emotions. Anything that's expressed as an emotion in the Bible is only for our benefit because that's not what God's like. Well, I would ask you, is there any indication that Jesus is like that, emotionless, unmovable? What we see here is that God was genuinely sorry he had created man. But why? He had never intended for men to be so evil to one another. And that's what happens every time that we accept sin into our lives and every time that we express that kind of evil and violence as well. So I hope these have helped. I hope this gives you some tools to talk to people. If you're in Bible study with someone, I hope this helps you to explain things or to ask good questions to help them to figure it out for themselves. Thank you.